Welcome, everyone. This is an unusual episode, and we are happy that you have chosen to join us. Today, it is different because James here is no longer in the interviewer seat, but he is the interviewee today. And so, what we are talking about is exciting. We're going to learn a little bit more about God's creative process and how we can glean and gain from that. And the elephant in the room is our creative specialist here is also an author. All right. So you have to go out and get this book. It's on Amazon. It's the paperback. You can get that. You can get also the ebook as well as the audiobook. This is fascinating. I won't tell you too much about it because we're going to be talking a little bit about that in the interview. And you will definitely get the opportunity to hear from James as to what went on in his mind and what led to the genesis. He loves that book, the genesis of this book, this creation. So James, welcome.
Thank you.
Imagine me welcoming you.
I know it's kind of weird. It's like I'm used to interviewing people. I've actually interviewed you.
Yes,
I have
multiple
times. So this is surreal. It's like, okay, this is how it feels.
That's right. And so not everyone watching today knows who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am, first of all, identify as the child of God.
Yes.
I was created in the image of God, and I see myself that way. But as far as background is concerned, my background is Burundi. So that's where my parents are from. I was born in Tanzania. I grew up in Malawi. I lived in South Africa for 3 years, and then currently I'm in Canada. I recently became Canadian. So I feel special.
Congrats.
Yeah, but all that aside, I love creating. I'm a creator. I'm a content creator. And I believe we're all created to create. And that's the ethos that has been driving me ever since.
Okay, awesome stuff. So let's dive right in.
Sure.
Many times I've heard you spoken about the book Genesis.
Yeah.
And I've listened to you in public forums, and you say this publicly. Everyone knows this by now, that you love the book Genesis in the Bible.
Yes.
And so I'm kind of interested in finding out what's the genesis behind the book. What you wrote in your book, actually, that this book came about as an emerge as a deep sense of seeking clarity on God's creative process and how we can derive creative success.
That's right.
So my question, I guess, to you then is, could you share that pivotal moment where that spark popped in your head to write this book?
Yeah, I remember it was during a time when so here's a backstory. So I've been a content creator like from the time I was 10. Right?
Oh yeah, we're going to touch that too.
I've created so many different things. Some were great, some were not. I was passionate about content creation. So when I came to Canada, I had access to Wi-Fi, right? So I started creating and sharing. However, I didn't have strategy in my creation. I was just creating randomly, right? But then one day I was like, I've created so many projects. However, none of them is actually taking off. What's wrong? So then I started journeying on a quest to finding out what's the best way to create successfully. What's the strategy? What's the secret to success? And in doing that, I was like, who created everything? It's like, okay, God. How did he create everything? Well, it's in Genesis. Then I kind of did, I guess you can call it reverse engineering, to say, if God is the greatest creator of all times, then he must have the greatest blueprint for creation of all times.
That's interesting.
So then I was like, okay, let's dive deep into Genesis. It must be there. And obviously, it also came across as a result of the people I listen to. So on YouTube, online, people I respect as well. And they seem to suggest that specifically there's a guy called Myron Golden. He's also very obsessed about Genesis and the Bible. And his entire business is built on King Solomon's business model.
That's why his logo has a lion on it, eh?
Yeah, I was like, how did I miss that? So then I took the Bible, not as a religious text, but as a life text. So which means the Bible has something to tell me about how I do business, about how I do marriage, about how I do everything.
Okay, so you were tapping into God's counseling book or a life coach
Pretty
book.
much, yeah.
Okay.
So that's how it came about. But I must say, it wasn't easy because I remember I went blank many times. I was like, okay, there must be something here, but it's no nothing.
I think
And
we're going to be
kept
touching a little bit more on that blankness, that void later as I progress in this interview with you. But I want to back up. You mentioned earlier that you have lived in several places.
Yeah.
You mentioned Tanzania, you
Right.
mentioned Malawi, you mentioned South Africa, and now Canada.
That's right.
How does all these cultural experience impact or influence the perspective you had on creativity?
They certainly do, because every culture has their own way of thinking, and particularly I think language. Language becomes critical in creation because looking at Genesis, it seems to be that language it's like the synthesis of all creation, because God said, "Let there be light," which means the vocabulary he had influenced whatever he created. So in Chichewa, for example, which is a language they speak in Malawi, they have some words that don't necessarily exist in English. English has some words that don't exist in other African languages. So I think for me, what languages did specifically was kind of open up my neural pathways, which is a scientific phenomenon, but also gave me license and freedom to vocabulary and understanding concepts from different perspectives. So I'll leave it at that high level.
Okay. So here's something that the viewers may be able to relate to a bit here. You know, he talked about a lot of things there that, as he said, maybe a higher level for some persons, but here's something everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
Out of all these cultures, name your favorite dish. What have you ate or partake of that was really good, that you definitely, it left a mark on your life?
Okay, that's good. It's mom's favorite dish as well. Well, favorite meaning she prepared it most of the times.
Okay.
So it's ibitoki with ibiharage, ubushaza, and all that type of stuff.
Explain, break it down. You know, some of us, we only know English.
So it's like plantain with peas. It's mixed with peas, and I think you also have, well, you have that with rice as well.
Okay.
But it's the way it's prepared and the way it tastes, and obviously there's some soup as well. So it's just amazing.
You have to promise to let me taste that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
In the future, in 2024.
Speaking of languages, how many languages do you speak?
I think 5, so that would be
Wow.
Chichewa, which is Malawian. Well, I can speak some Swahili,
Ooh.
which is from Tanzania, Kenya as well. I speak Kirundi, that's my parents' language. It's Kirundi. And the other language, of course, English. And okay, so this is like, I'm cheating, but it's a language that's mutually intelligible to Kirundi. It's called Kinyarwanda or Ikinyarwanda. I can speak that too.
Oh, wow.
So that makes it 5.
Okay. How would you say subscribe? How would you say subscribe in all 5 of these languages? Because you mentioned some of these languages.
Subscribe. It doesn't exist.
In none of them?
Well, it does exist, but I haven't heard it being used.
Okay. All right. So,
but I would say, like, okay, subscribe. If I did a literal translation, would be follow me.
Okay.
Or
how would you say that in those languages?
Follow me. So, Kirundi Muhurikire, which sounds weird. It's like, why are you doing that? Muhurikire, and then Chichewa Mundi. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
We just want, some persons may just watch this that knows those languages.
Munditadire, that would be Chichewa, and then Swahili will be Muni. Help. I need help.
Okay.
Munifuate, that's it.
Okay.
And then, yeah, but it doesn't make sense. The viewers are like, those who understand these languages are like, what are you doing?
Well, at least we're learning a little bit about your
Sure.
linguistic prowess.
Yeah, well,
All right,
appreciate
so
that.
let's go journey back to your childhood, because
Yeah.
we're getting to uncover how we arrive here and to
Right.
see what knowledge we can glean or learn from you and share with other content creators out there, which incidentally is one of the main focus of your book.
That's
which we're going to touch. But in your book, you said in your childhood you usually spend time using sticks and stones to do storytelling.
Yes.
This is interesting. How does childhood play shape your creative perspective or your creative future?
I actually think, just to preface my answer, I think childhood usually is what determines your creative potential. And in fact, when a child is growing up, watch what they do. There's a story to what they are doing. Like God, I believe, puts within each person that creative desire in a unique way, because each person has to reflect God in a unique way. So for me, it was storytelling. Obviously it came in different forms, but it was that desire to tell a story and to just share what's going on. It had a profound impact on me because I would watch movies, of course, as most of my generation did growing up, and then when we came home, I would sit my brothers down and just replay those scenes. But what was funny is I never necessarily replayed the movies as they were. I always did something out like completely different. Like I had to, there was some originality.
You infused your personality,
I did.
Your style.
I had my
and
own
everything.
storylines, and then I found who's the protagonist, the antagonist, and then it was.
So in a sense, you kind of retold the story.
I did.
From a different lens, different perspective, almost.
Pretty much, and I actually used to enjoy it. It's one of the things I used to enjoy, just having people around, and then I'm playing with the sticks. Funny.
So, sticks and stones. If let's talk about toys and gadgets. If you were to choose one modern toy today to play with, what would that be?
That's hard because honestly, I've never had exposure to modern toys. But
you're very techie right now.
Okay, you mean those toys? You mean those toys? Okay. You know what's funny? It probably would be animation software. For me, it's not really a toy, but because what I was doing at that level wasn't even playing really. I was actually into animation and storytelling. I wasn't doing it. When kids play, sometimes they're doing it for the sake of, just having fun. But I had like huge intention towards this thing.
So do you have any gadget, any toy today that you like to play with? Like for example, I recently bought a Lego from Costco, 900 plus pieces, and I put that together and then download the software, and I was driving that. That was fun to do, even though I'm an adult, but it was good, and I also engaged my neighbor in it, and she helped, and we had a good time. So in anything you have today that you would say is a gadget, a toy that you would really say, I spend a lot of time with, I enjoy playing with this?
Yeah, my problem is I spend too much time with reality.
Oh my gosh.
Toys. But if there was a toy that had, maybe you can suggest a toy, because I'm thinking of anything that would allow me to tell a story where I have different actors and or antagonists and protagonists. So it's more like a whole game, really.
Okay, so guys, you heard him. I'm inviting you to write in the comments, give him some suggestions as to what toy you think he would best enjoy at this point in time. All right. Now, you're moving forward. Your book kind of has this universal appeal.
Yeah.
Because initially, after reading, I get the impression that you are reaching to content creators.
Yeah.
But then you kind of opened up that scope, and it's even at the front of your book saying to businesses and churches.
That's right.
And like that's a big jump in terms of the stratosphere in society.
Yeah.
Explain the what device, if someone is struggling today to move forward in their creative process,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them?
Wow, that's like two questions, but I'll kill two birds with
One stone. All right, go for it.
I like to say kill two.
You're a Christian, thou shalt not kill, bro.
I know, but I like to say there's a funny thing I say: kill two stones with one bird.
You have to explain how that works.
Here's how it works.
No clue.
It's a bird so powerful, it's able to mount up beyond every obstacle.
Somebody has to write in the chat what he just said, because I think he said it in a language in Malawi, definitely not English.
Now, anyways, but yeah,
go ahead.
So I'll answer it this way: there is that universal appeal, and fundamentally, the reason for that is because fundamentally, we're all the same. We're created in God's image. And this is something I've never expressed in the book, but maybe I might as well.
So you see, anyone watching this is getting some added information. Right?
That's right. You're getting more than, well, not really. You're getting bites here and there. But here's what I'm exploring and starting to believe, that God is all powerful, all knowing, and all present. And because of that, he cannot tell a story. The reason why God can't tell a story is because God doesn't have a limitation. He can get whatever he wants any time of the day. And so he creates us with limitations so that we can tell his story.
But stories in some ways are the ability to convey the narrative of an event.
Exactly.
So if that's true, then God can tell a story, because when we read the narrative of how God tells the children of Israel what he has done for them, coming out of bondage into Canaan, in some ways, that's a narrative that God had to sell to them.
You know what's interesting about that?
Go ahead.
Here's what's interesting. God is only able to tell them the story of how he led them. And one of the key characters in the story is them. We haven't heard any story about God outside of this context.
Genesis.
So, well, what does it say?
He told the story of how
he created
existence came about,
but you see,
man came to be.
But even then, the only way it makes sense is if you have limitation. So in the beginning, like, there has to be time, there has to be space and matter. And these, again, I'm exploring this concept, but I think it makes sense because God needs us in that sense to tell his story. Why would God create us in his image? Because fundamentally, God is omnipresent, right? And
okay, so let me see if I get you correct. You're
Sure.
saying God can't tell his own story, or God can't tell a story.
okay, maybe let's not be stuck on that. The point is the point is we are instrumental in telling the story of God. We were created to tell his story.
Okay, definitely.
And God has chosen us to tell his story because he believes it's better if we tell his story
Sounds
than
good.
if he does. For many reasons, including that if he tells his story to us, we won't understand what's going on.
I agree.
It won't make sense to us because I am that I am. We're still struggling with that till today.
That's right.
But if he can create a human being that has limitation and that has finitude to them in some sense, then at least you can have a picture of who God is. And I think that's why it's fundamental that when Jesus came, he came as human. Otherwise, we would never have a clue of who God is.
Definitely, I agree. He has to appear to us the way we can best understand.
Yes, and so to answer your question, really, for those who are struggling to success in their creative enterprise, I want you to remember that there is no creative enterprise without the creator, which is God. And my favorite mentor says, you don't need a good idea, you need a God idea. Because once you have a God idea, success is inevitable. And so Most of us, it's not that we don't work hard or we don't have potential or we don't have skills or even resources. It's just that we're not picking the right ideas.
And every idea that comes from God is good. So
Yes.
connecting with God gives all good ideas. All right,
Yes.
sounds good. Now, many persons may not know that you are a songwriter,
Am I?
composer, and so on. So, if you were to compose a soundtrack for your book, creating how to create like God, if you were to create a soundtrack for this book, what would that be? What genre would that be? And what kind of instruments would you use?
I'm very biased when it comes to music because I love a cappella music. And most of the songs that I've written were a cappella. And the reason why I love a cappella is because I just love that natural power of the human voice. And
Could this also have influenced the initial cultures you grew up in?
maybe, funny enough, I grew up listening to a singing group called Vocal Union.
Okay.
And they were mostly male and they sang a cappella. So that was the influence. But in fact, I'm going to suggest that when God said, "Let there be light,"
Yes.
he sang.
Okay. That's interesting. We definitely
was
have to pick
musical.
up that another time. Melody in his voice, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the vibration. Should we keep going?
And the Spirit of God moved on the water, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So the Spirit of God danced in some sense. So you see him going into the rhythm, and that rhythm is what creates.
Okay. I'm thinking some of your viewers like myself will have to, try to grapple with that imagery of God dancing.
Oh, he danced.
What it would be like. I'm sure he does. It's just that he's so infinite that it's hard for me to conceive it. I don't know about you. What do you think about God dancing and the Holy Spirit making vibrations for music? Interesting stuff. Now, on the side of spiritual alignment, you have talked a lot about connecting with God to get creative inspiration or the blueprint, because he's the first and greatest creator.
Yeah.
And so if what he has done still exists to now, it means that if we take a page out of his book.
Yeah.
That's funny, right? I didn't intend for that to sound that way. If you take a page out of God's book on the Bible, not literal now, you will learn how to create lasting and sustainable creative ventures and projects. So I guess my question for you then is, how does your spiritual belief how do you align your spiritual belief with your creative process? What does that look like? Because for many persons, this is somewhat out of the box. How to create like God. They have never thought about it, because for those Christians listening, you would have learned that God Barak created out of nothing, whereas when we create, we use just what exists. So when you say create like God, this provokes the mind for many persons. So what's your process of your spiritual alignment with your creative process?
Well, I must say I didn't have this thought or paradigm all the time. I actually adopted it at some point. In fact, very recently. It's funny because one person, when I told him, he's actually my client, and I told her the name of the book, and she was like, "That sounds blasphemous." Funny, like create like God. So what are you talking about? So I do get the sentiment, but what's funny is so here's how I'm gonna answer this question. The Bible says you are made in the image of God, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. When you wake up and you look in the mirror every day, what do you see?
God's handiwork.
Now be honest here. Do you see the image of God? Or do you see some imperfect something?
I see a resemblance of the image of God.
Okay, you see a resemblance, but not the image of God.
In its perfect state, but the image nonetheless, because the Bible also says the heaven declares the glory of God and the firmament shows his handiwork. All creation is marred by sin, but we still see beauty that shows how great thou art, God. And so, though man may not, in his fallen state, represents the perfect image of God, I still think we can see resemblance, shades, figures, perspective of God in every capacity of love, kindness,
Right.
and everything that we do that is good, because every good gift and perfect gift comes from God.
Good. Now, the reason why I bring up that analogy or question is because if you do statistics, and in all honesty, when most people, believers or not really, but mainly believers, when they look in the mirror, they don't even see any resemblance of God at all. They see themselves as alien to God, that God is so distant from them. When in the very engineering of God, the design, the purpose is for God to be closer to us. And we are closer to God than we think, which is primarily why, if you go into theology, why the devil hates us, because we have something he doesn't have. And as mad as it may be, God has a plan to preserve that and to resurrect that, which is why we have Jesus. So when you come from that perspective, you realize that you are actually made in the image of God. And when you believe that, the way you carry yourself is different, because you no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances. You see yourself as a co-creator with God. Now, when I say co-creator, obviously only God can bara, right? He's the one who creates something out of nothingness. But he has given us a power to create.
I agree.
And so most of us don't tap into that power, because we think, there's a wonderful quote from one of my favorite books, Education. I think I did quote it here. It says, whenever an investigation of truth is initiated, in any line of investigation, with sincerity and with the sincerity, and also the goal to arrive at truth. Whenever you have truth, sincerity as your goal, and you embark on that journey, you are brought into contact with the mind of the infinite. And I was like, really? So it doesn't have to be a person who reads the Bible per se.
Yeah, pretty much. So you're saying any investigation of anything in nature will reveal some aspects of God and his creative ability.
Not just reveal, but actually you have some, let's call it, creative intimacy with God. So in my mind, if in fact there's a video on YouTube, it says Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and all these other guys, it says they stole their ideas from God. Because it is...
Why stole?
Well,
why not that God revealed it, or God allowed them to learn or to gain? Because knowledge, for example, this is just my thought on it, and I would love to hear what our viewers have to say online on this point. Yes. The idea that God gave us the capacity to learn and to evolve, if you will, in terms of knowledge.
Yeah.
This means then that it is really left to how much we tap into what God has already made available, that we see outcomes of brilliance or ingenuity and so on. For example, we tap into this all the time, but we don't know. Many people partake in the act of procreation. That's creating with God.
It is.
That's literally tapping. God gave us the ability to join with him, to cooperate with him to create a miracle.
Right. In fact, that's one of the most finest representation of creative power, because that's something that the devil doesn't have.
That's right.
That only humans have, which is why obviously it's so distorted and all that. But I believe everybody has that creative potential, and so when you see yourself that way, then everything you do becomes different.
Interesting. So essentially, a takeaway from this is that the more we align with God and his blueprint, we find ourselves moving forward in our creative process.
Yeah, in fact, the way I see creativity versus spirituality, I think I mentioned this in the book as well, is I believe creativity is a spiritual enterprise. So any creative thing is anything that involves creativity is spiritual. So think of business. Business is spiritual. highly spiritual. So when I'm making a transaction, it's very spiritual because God expects me to reflect him in my business enterprise.
I can definitely dig that.
And so when I create a song, the whole idea is, can I say the song is an image of God in some way or form or shape?
So many persons would really say for you, it's just perspective and aligning with the right perspective.
Yeah.
But your point is that whether we realize it or not,
Yeah.
we are partaking of God's creative
We are
brilliance that he has shared to humanity.
every day. And it's a gift from God. Intellect, the ability to
I agree.
reason, it's all God's.
You sound complex, but it's really simple. I agree.
They say simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
That's right. Let's talk time travel. If you could travel back in time,
Yeah.
and choose one Bible figure, one character
Why are you doing that
that
to me?
you would want to collaborate with on a creative project, what would that project be, and who would you collaborate with?
Why are you doing that to me? I kind of know the character, but I'm still figuring out what to do with them. But it'll come.
Who's the character?
So the character that came to my mind first is Nehemiah.
Nehemiah. Why Nehemiah?
So the reason why Nehemiah is because I was looking at this guy, I'm like, you are very interesting. So he was able to build the tower, the wall, I guess you call it, the wall of
Rebuild the wall of Jerusalem.
rebuild the wall in a very short period of time with not so many people necessarily. So what I want to learn from Nehemiah is, one day I might write a book of Nehemiah. It's a productivity secrets from Nehemiah, because
Sign me up. That sounds like a new a new book title. Don't steal it now. It's already copyright. It's right here on YouTube.
we have evidence. But like when you look at Nehemiah, he's a genius. The way he works, the way, like, I was reading the book of Nehemiah, and at every level you can see success secrets. And actually, this is how I treat the Bible from now on. It's like when I open Genesis, I'm not just reading Genesis. I'm looking, okay, Genesis, so how do you apply it to everything else in life? And then I make those connections. So it'll be Nehemiah. Maybe not rebuilding the wall, but I would like to bring Nehemiah's principles into my modern day passion, which currently is media production.
So you would collab with him to do a video production, a movie, a documentary about God's creative productivity. Building. What would it be?
For some reason, it feels that even with creativity, like, you know, building a house, yeah, is very different from recording an episode. It's all productivity and creativity, but it's so different. And I want to see myself reach that level of material production. Not that, you know, what we're doing is not production, but I think there's some value in real estate.
You like the tangible.
The tangible. So I would bring him into AI. Maybe an application would work. I'm actually thinking of an application.
Did you hear that, guys? He would collab with Nehemiah on AI. All right.
Oh, that's it. I'm thinking of an application for in collaboration with OpenAI on voice journaling. So they already have a voice feature, which is amazing, but I want to bring that into voice journaling, and the application will be helping people find themselves.
Okay, that sounds like something I plan to ask you, which is what's next? Is that one of the what next projects for you that you're currently working on?
It could be the next project, because I applied to OpenAI actually. So they have this fund. I think it's called Converge 2. If you have a great idea, they'll give you $1 million to build the app using their software or whatever, their technology.
Interesting.
So I applied, and we'll see how it goes. So if it works, that will be a next project. But as far as other next projects, I would say I'm actually excited about. This is still my.
Okay, this is interesting.
My copy says not for resale. I don't have the actual one, but this is Journal Through the Bible in a Year challenge.
Show the viewers. They need to.
Hello,
I've seen
viewers.
the promotions on this so far.
Hello, viewers. Do you see what I see?
Yes.
Actually, the ad for this starts with, "Do you see what I see?"
Okay.
And then I go into the stats. Anyways, yeah.
So this is actually the textbook for the course that you're working on or the program.
It's not a course. It's
It feels like a course. One point you said, "Don't be left out." You gotta sign up. So so tell me, are you going to be doing this? Just a person just going to be reading this by themselves, or do they have the privilege of you collaborating with them or guiding them through this process? Because I think for many of your followers or so on would probably be intrigued just connecting with you maybe on Zoom or something to do this.
Yeah, well, that option exists. So the idea is this is a journal through the whole Bible. Well, this is from Genesis to Deuteronomy. The Bible is so huge we can't do everything in one.
Wow.
So we'll do it in parts. So this is part 1. In March we do part 2, and so on and so forth until we have 5 parts. We should cover the entire Bible.
So this would be like a 5-volume.
Pretty much. So Genesis to Deuteronomy, and then you do the what's it called? They're not the prophets, the kings, or history books. Then after history books, you do wisdom books. Then after wisdom, you have a volume on the prophets, maybe minor and major together or separate. And then you have the letters, the New Testament, the Gospels, and then the rest of the letters as a volume.
Okay.
And then we share it like that. So it's straightforward. 7 questions. Once you read a chapter, you read 3 chapters every day. And once you finish a chapter, you answer 7 questions.
Can they actually write in this?
They can. So I have space for writing, but only one answer. Singular is more powerful than multiplicity, as far as being simple is concerned. So I know you can garner so much truth from the Bible, but the truth that matters is not the truth you know. It's the truth you keep.
What you apply
Exactly.
to your life. Okay.
What you apply is what's most important. So I don't have to go into this. You guys can watch the video promo for this. But for example, the first question you ask is, what is the main principle or truth God is communicating to me in this chapter? Just one. Not 5, just one. That way it becomes memorable. And I mean, you do this 3 times a day, so you don't want too much either.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. I'm excited.
Awesome.
We actually already have a group, by the way. People join from around the world.
Okay.
We have about 100.
So I was right. I did see a promotion for a group.
We have about 120 people already from different countries.
That's nice.
And everybody's excited. So we'll see how this goes.
Is this free? Does it cost?
So that's a good question.
Do they have to buy the book to follow along?
It's up to them. If you want, you can buy the book on Amazon or get the digital copy on my website. Not my website. It's journalsthroughthebible.com. But joining the group is free. You can join for free, collaborate with other people for free. If you want personal Bible coaching, though, then you may need to invest into that and have us work with you to realize something in your life, or maybe there's a question you have, something you want to clarify, then we can do that for you.
Awesome. So back to the book. You said in chapter 4 you talked about the void, God
you read the whole book.
God moving on, the Holy Spirit moving on the water.
The water, yeah. And
I want you to unpack that void for us.
Can I avoid that?
How do you confront and interpret creative challenges? Because in some ways it's almost as if you're saying, go out in the void, facing this, but many persons see this as very challenging to go out. Someone wants to create a YouTube channel, for example, and you're like, I can't speak on YouTube. I'm scared. That void out there is intimidating. How do you challenge this, and what advice could you give to someone that might be challenged with this experience?
Well, so like my mentor says, the only way to it is through it. Okay. There's no other way. And in the book, I make it very clear that I believe facing your void is integral to any creative success. Like that's the first stage you have to pass. So you have to be willing to confront with the void long enough, because that's how inspiration is born. So the difference between those who are successful and those who are not is usually in how much time they spend with the problem they want to solve. That's it. Because the way our minds are wired, if you give me a problem, actually there's this exercise that this other guy does online. It's not Jim Rohn, but someone similar to him. They have the same philosophy. He says, write down your problem that you have. Let's say you have 5 problems, and every day spend an hour writing 20 solutions to that problem. By the end of 30 days, you will have the solution.
Okay.
Because once you invoke
so every day you write down how much solutions that
20
problem?
solutions
to that one problem.
Yes.
So
and then obviously you do math to kind of adjust, say which one is more relevant, which one can I apply.
And so by 30 days, you're saying that the problem is solved.
Not solved, but you will have found a solution that works.
Okay.
And maybe that you actually now your body is willing to engage in.
Fair enough. But some persons would say, I know what I need to do next. I know the step I want to take.
Okay.
But it's intimidating. How do I, what do you do? Do you pray?
Okay.
What do you do to get you so inspired to write books?
Okay.
To do creative ventures and all these other stuff?
Okay, so now I think I know what you're referring to. So it's not the void as what I was thinking. Okay, I get it. To people who are struggling to actually go out and create, there's a formula in Genesis. Forgive me for using Genesis too much.
That's fine. It's your favorite book.
The formula is be, do, have.
Be, do, have.
Yes.
You should see that on the screen.
Maybe it's transparent.
Be, do, have.
Be, do, have. You cannot do until you become the person who can do the thing you want to do. You cannot have until you've done what necessitates you to have. The issue with most of us is we want to have before we become the person that can have.
Okay, that sounds
that is
deep.
able to do, to have.
That sounds deep. So it's like one of my mentor in the past that says that we are who we are becoming.
Yes.
So similar,
yeah. Because
so in order to have, you must
become. Yes. Becoming is the secret. So for example, you want to have...
And how did you become the author, the creative?
So the way I became the author...
Is there a single point?
Okay, so I became... This is funny. I became by what's called imagination, which there are 4 levels of value, and imagination is the highest level of value. So people who operate at imagination level, they're the millionaires and billionaires of this world. So you have imagination, then you have communication. These are people who communicate. Then you have unification. These are people who manage other people and other resources. And at the bottom, you have implementation, people who do.
Okay.
So I'm not so much excited in doing things as much as I am in being.
You like the big ideas.
Yeah, I'm not a human doing. I'm a human being.
Okay.
So
I see what you did with that word just now.
Because
you're a being. Okay.
Yes, I am that I am, right? It's in the being. Anyways, so imagination is the highest level of value. Imagination means here. So when God created the world, he did not begin with implementation. The issue is most of us want to begin with implementation. Well, it's not advisable to begin with implementation for many reasons. But maybe the one that people care about is if you spend your entire life in implementation, you can only make so much value out of it.
I see.
Which is why people who do implementation jobs, for example, you won't get more than maybe 100K a year in implementation. But step up to unification, become a manager. Oh, why does your salary increase as a manager? Who works more? If you really do a comparison, it's not about who works more, it's about the value they're operating at. Now, if you go up to communication, a singer There's this billionaire, I forgot her name. She just became a billionaire recently. I don't follow them. But what does she do? She sings songs? Really? And then maybe produced a movie last year? Really? How much effort does it take?
So it's not really, I guess it's not really so much about the effort then, if I'm getting you right. It's about the value you impart and how people relate to or value that which you're providing. Like for example, a manager gives more value possibly to the company than the person who executes on the everyday level. They are both important, but definitely the person who executes may not know all the necessary stuff to do to run the business and manage it. So for that reason, the manager imparts more value. So you're saying then the more value we impart is the more our ability to scale and to earn and to be better. Is that the case?
I am saying that, but in a kind of different way. I'm saying that it's not even about the value you impart. Because I could be a manager and provide zero value, like be the worst manager and still get paid more than a faithful implementer.
But at least theoretically.
Theoretically. Now, which is that's very important, because theoretically we understand that these levels of value, they're not, what's the word? They're not, English is failing me.
Give us another language.
They're not just there. They do not just... They're not man-made.
Okay.
God initiated these levels. So at a fundamental level, from God's perspective, speech is more important than doing. Because God, for example, did not think anything into existence, but he spoke things into existence.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to do whether one is more important. It's just it's a hierarchy in God's system. And the fundamental axiom to all of our discussion is that God has created this world with systems and principles that always work the way he designed them to work. It's a matter of us adapting to say, okay, it works that way? All right, I'll position myself this way. So the last thing I want to say on imagination, like imagination is so big because that's what God begins. Obviously, we can extrapolate this from Genesis, but before God says, let there be light, he understands what light is. He spent some time thinking about light. So it all begins here, which is very funny because if we look at in this studio, everything around us, including ourselves, was once an idea. This was once an idea. You were once an idea.
So everything begins there. So you're saying an idea, but I guess most people, that's the challenge they have. I have an idea, but maybe not the know-how to get there. And that's what most people are struggling with. Like I've personally connected with persons who would love to quit the 9 to 5, but they don't know how to run their own business. Do you say read books? Because you mentioned a critical point there about becoming to have. So is that a great part of this is spending time developing yourself to be that person then?
It is, and you're right. Reading, I encourage you reading, listening to other people other than yourself, because you already know what you have to say.
Which is interesting because just listening to you talk, I know that you have shared a lot concerning the questions we're asking, but you also make reference a lot to other creatives and people out there. So how do you balance the time between doing all the things you're doing, writing, in media production, your spiritual life and everything else? How do you balance the time with that and still find time to learn so much and watch other or listen to other content creator and learn from them? Do you sleep?
Well, God never sleeps. He never slumbers. So if I'm made in his image, what's the implication? Just kidding. I do sleep. I do need some sleep. But yeah, I do spend quite some time learning. I think learning is not a waste of time because
I agree.
If I learn, I can do things two ways. I can either do it myself or I can learn. If I do it myself, I can spend 5 years trying to figure out how to do it. Or I can find someone who's already done it and do it in 1 month.
Makes sense.
Which is why I encourage buy the book, buy the course, find the mentor, and let them help you, which is really a powerful principle that kills all creativity. Creativity cannot happen in isolation. God did not say, and God said, let me create man in my image. He said, let us create man in our image. One thing that will speed up your creativity is collaboration with others.
I agree 100%.
Like it would just, and in fact, if you want to create like the finest product, in God's case, it's us, then you cannot forego delegation and collaboration.
I can't say how much I agree. I've been a business owner, many businesses in the past, and I literally know what it means to do every aspect of the business for yourself.
Yeah.
And that can just burn you out.
It does.
And you limits how much you can earn.
Yep.
It's not until I started to collaborate with a lot of other people where business is concerned, spend money to do other things and not try to do them all by myself.
Yeah.
But I find that I can really scale and be much more productive. So that's definitely true. I can relate to that.
Okay.
Here is a question for you that I'm concerned about. Reading the book, I would love to hear your perspective on this because it's been playing in my mind. And that is, what's your most challenging project? Because you seem to have developed this optimism and that because you're creating like God creates, there's nothing that could
Nothing
stop
in
you,
my way.
especially since you're operating from
Nothing
imagination.
can hinder me.
Because you're operating from imagination. What would you say is your most challenging project to date?
This is interesting. That book over there wasn't challenging. It was fun in a sense. I mean, it had its own challenges. But my friend over here was really challenging.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't really expecting it to be as challenging. In fact, as you can see right now, there's already a challenge because the cover is in the back. But anyways.
Okay.
It was challenging because, you know, when I went to my brother, I said, yo, you do some coding, right? I want to, the word is...
Collaborate?
Not just collaborate, but I want you to help me write code.
Okay.
So I can take these 7 questions, and then auto-generate the entire book. Because the idea was auto-generate this. Like, imagine me typing all of this. It doesn't make sense. So it's like, okay, let's write a program that will input the 7 questions. We give it instruction to say stretch from January 1st to January 2025, which is when the whole thing ends. And for each day, take one song from the hymn, because I want to stretch out the hymns as well. People will be able to sing the entire hymn in a year as well. And then obviously take chapters in chronology from Genesis to Revelation. He knows how to code. He can just do it for me. But it was like, nah. So you have this creative desire and energy and fire burning within you, and then obstacle. I've done some coding, but not at that level. I've never used Python, which is what I would have to use here. So it's like, well, I think this is so important, not just for me, but I've seen the void. I've seen the statistics. I know people need to read the whole Bible. So that's what drove me to say, okay, let's consult ChatGPT. So I did. I went on ChatGPT and said, okay, well, show me how to do this. He gave me some instructions, gave me some primarily code. I do understand a little bit of how logic works in code. So, but for me, that was learning how to code because I had to learn how to do Python. And that was challenging because at every level, imagine you write code, it works.
And something happens.
Then it doesn't work. Then you have to fix that.
It, yeah.
So it was like debugging mode. I was like, what am I doing here? I'm not what is it called? I'm not a software programmer, engineer or something like that. But that wasn't enough. After I'm done with that, I remember I was so stuck because, and this is a testament to what we're talking about. I was so stuck. I had no idea how to do this thing. I knew I wanted to do a devotional for the whole year. But when I did the whole year, the book was going to be too big. And not just too big, I couldn't even load the document.
Oh, wow.
Microsoft Word was like, no, we can't help you.
Can't help you.
This is too much. So I called a friend. I said, I have this problem. Can you help? I am stuck. And funny enough, she says, we can divide it in 2 sections. Now, in my creative focus, I didn't see that coming. And for me, I felt so
Problem
relieved.
was just so big to you at
I
the
know.
point, eh?
I felt so relieved. Oh, yeah, wow. Yeah, we can do that. So there was that collaboration that helped me. And that's why I say that, like, if you are stuck, you're not really stuck. You just need someone to show you. You're not really stuck. There's no such thing as being stuck.
So this then is your most challenging project to date?
It is my most challenging because, look, at many times I thought this won't work. I didn't think, I knew that was going to work.
Definitely.
I knew I was going to finish that. But for this one, I wasn't too sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't too sure because I've never done this before. I don't know how people will receive it. But I would say it's the most challenging. I guess maybe it's because of the recency effect as well.
Possibly, yeah.
But that would be it.
Wrapping up, how, if you were to create a workshop inviting some of most famous creators,
Okay.
who would you invite? And what would be the first item on the agenda?
Wow, who would I invite? I mean, obviously, I would invite my mentor, Myron Golden.
You wouldn't invite me?
How many did you say I can invite?
I'm just kidding.
I would invite him because, like, he's like, the way he thinks is different. And really, like,
What's his name?
Myron Golden.
Myron Golden. Look him up, guys.
He's golden in every sense of the word. So I would invite him to speak because I love he's very grounded scripturally. So he's like, he'll tell you that Jesus is God, and in the same line tell you that, show you how to make money by the end of the month.
Which is good. I do believe that they are not so exclusive,
Yeah.
God and every other aspect of our life, because the Bible does seem to be clearly suggesting that God wants a part of every aspect of our life.
Yes.
Because only He can improve every
That's
aspect
right.
of our
Only
life.
he can, for sure. So that would be him. The item on the agenda will be
First item.
first item. This is something that I actually want to do a workshop on, but I think he can do it better. And that would be success secrets from Bible billionaires.
Success secret from Bible billionaires.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's too controversial, I'll say Bible millionaires. Because in my mind, when I look at Abraham, the question I have is, what was his business model? How did he do it? Because he was apparently very rich. Not just rich, very rich. Job, how did he do it? What was his strategy? Solomon, how did he do it? Nehemiah, how did he do it? All these people. So I have a compilation of all these Bible billionaires, which is weird because nobody ever says that. And study them to say, what was their secret to success?
I'm interested. If you do create this workshop, give me an invitation. I'll even clean the floor or whatever. Just
You
to
be
get
the
in,
host.
right? So by the way, you got to sign my copy.
Right,
You have to
right.
sign my copy. Guys, thank you for joining us. We just had a wonderful interview tapping into the mind and the creative process of James Niyomugabo. He is
did
a
it.
content creator. He is a Christian, a philosopher,
Wow.
scholar, business, entrepreneur, specialist, you name
So
it.
many titles.
He is diverse. And you have to go out there and get the book, How to Create
Like God.
Like
does.
God. God's successful blueprint for creators, church, companies, and businesses. Creators, companies, and churches.
Yes.
Good. You have got to get it. I've gotten my copy. This is my personal copy. I bought it. He didn't give it to me free. And
Well,
I bought it. It came just
That's not
last
nice.
week. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't biased
Okay.
coming to this interview.
Oh, I see.
I wanted to make sure I bought my copy, not just
With
to
your own
support
money, so
him.
you
Yeah,
can-
with my own money, so I
Yeah.
own this, even though he owns the right to the content and he will sign it for me. But I read this and I'm encouraging you guys to go out there and read. You have heard from him. He has definitely some deep thoughts on how to arrive at successful ventures and how to be a successful creative. This spans beyond just an individual. It has information for churches, for companies, and you can hear from the wealth of knowledge he wants to share just in this little forum that he is burning up to do greater and bigger things for God. I encourage you to get your copy, join on this journey. He has a new book coming out. Look forward, stay tuned, subscribe, and click that notification bell so that you can get more information when this comes out. We're happy that you have joined us. Stay tuned until our next video.